in youth ministry and now as a barista part-time because his youth pastor job doesn't pay enough. But throw the tattoo in there and it gets a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, it definitely throws a little badass into the conversation.
It has to. I couldn't be too cliche, you know.
Definitely, and we'll get to that later. The whole non-cliche youth pastor.
Oh yeah, it's there.
When it comes to those three things, your Holy Trinity, actually, what came first?
Oh man. I mean, I was super involved in my youth group when I was in middle and high school. The church I grew up in, the youth group was just high school. So after you got out of middle school is when you essentially went to the youth group. But my parents were really close with our youth pastors. They kind of mentored them. And so I spent a lot of time with them, and then, you know, sometimes they would let me come into the youth group if there wasn't like no other middle school kids around. And I just like got really close with them, and they actually left the church as soon as I went into the youth group. Just had a falling out with the church, but I still stayed really close to them and just loved them. And you know, once we got a new youth pastor, I was super involved. And then I got involved in an organization called Young Life when I was in high school, and I had leaders there, and I just like loved it. And it was something that I kind of knew that I was gonna do or be part of forever. And even as a student, you know, at my church and in Young Life, I was very hands-on. Like I was always trying to figure out how to help. I was bringing kids. I was, you know, showing up early, staying late. That's just like what I did. And so that's for sure what came first. And then I mean, I guess I've always liked tattoos, but never did I dream that I would be tattooing ever. So that one was just kind of like a surprise.
Did you like drawing though?
Yeah, I grew up drawing and just like making art all of the time. My grandma was an artist, and so I spent a lot of time drawing with her, and you know, she would always come to my art shows and stuff. It was really interesting. My like early life, I spent a lot of time creating art, and then as I got a little bit older, like later elementary, early middle school, my attention and focus shifted way more towards like sports, because that's what my dad wanted.
Right.
And you know, I didn't have any complaints about it, but I kind of stopped drawing. I did a little bit here and there, but I still like loved art. And my grandma passed away while I was in, I think, either late elementary or early middle school. And so, you know, the presence of art wasn't as strong as the presence of sports, because my dad like loved tennis, loved that I played basketball. He was my coach for both. So art was always there. And I think that, you know, if as a kid I had been more self-aware, I probably would have chosen to do more art in my life. But I was always drawn and stuff. And I remember when I was 12, I like I had an interaction with somebody with tattoos that I was like, oh man, those are really cool. And then from that point on, I was like, I have to have tattoos, you know. So every once in a while I would like draw one up and you know, just come up with something. And then after high school, so not playing sports, you know, me and my dad had this conversation where I was like, yeah, sports aren't my focus, that's not what I'm gonna do. And he knew that too. We kind of decided that in high school. And he supported me. But then after high school, I like needed some sort of outlet, and art kind of came back up, and I started drawing while I was traveling and stuff.
Like a latent love, kind of.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time alone while I was traveling, and I just had all these like ideas in my head and how to put them somewhere, and got back into it.
That's a big conversation to have, and be like, hey, Pops, like, this isn't my thing.
Yeah.
I'm good at it, I like it, but this isn't my thing. Like, was that?
It was really hard. I will never forget it, because I had to do it twice. In high school, I played tennis and basketball, and I quit basketball after my freshman year because I didn't like the coaches. I was on this team for a year. They couldn't remember my name. You know, I had some of the highest defensive stats on our team,
Right.
and they swung another kid onto JV because he had higher points than me. Which for anybody who plays sports, defense is so important. So, you know,
No doubt.
I was the best defender on the team, and they just did not pay attention to it. And they didn't know my name at the end of the year. They sat me down and called me Jordan and showed me my stats, and I was like, this doesn't matter anyway. I'm not coming back. And I remember going. I actually went to my mom first because I was so nervous to talk to my dad, and I was like crying talking to my mom because I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, this is so scary. And she was like, he's gonna understand. He's gonna understand. And I remember going down to the basement because that's where my dad like had his little business set up, and I was like, hey, can we just like talk really quick? And he was so sweet. He was like, yeah, just sit down, you know, kind of like this, honestly, just like right next to him. And he stopped working for just a little bit, and I just told him, I was like, I think I'm done. And you know, he had his questions. He was like, why? And he kind of already knew. He was a good dad, so he was like, I know. He was like, I know, but I want you to tell me.
Right.
And you know, he just looked at me and he said, hey, if you don't love basketball, then I don't want you to play basketball. He was like, I want you to do what you love, and I'm proud of you, and you put in a lot of hard work and discipline, and you're at the age where you can decide these things, you know. And it was so scary, but I was so thankful I did it. And it shifted my attention more to tennis, which is really what he loved, and I fell in love with tennis too, but not to his level. But yeah, it kind of shifted that too.
Wow, that's an honoring conversation, and it's always like that, isn't it? Like the worst thing you think it could be, when it's the right person or the right situation, like you're like, oh wow, that was way easier than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I never thought you were gonna understand.
Yeah.
When I hit you with that one.
Yeah, and he was my coach for everything, and he was such a hard ass that, like, you know, so
you're not expecting
exactly
big soft dude to come out and be like, hey,
in my day-to-day with like my friends and stuff, I was having issues. My dad was so soft and gentle and kind and loving, but you know, on the tennis court or on the basketball court, he was like, you know, just like militant almost. And so there's two sides of him. So when I'm like in sports brain mode, that's who I'm talking to. I'm not talking to this gentle guy, but he handled that as dad, not as coach, you know, and I really appreciated that. So it was a really good conversation that obviously I still remember very well. So
that's crazy, and it's hard to give up on, because like the electrician thing, as an electrician, like that's kind of what it was. Like one day you're just like, wow, I'm like not appreciated here at all, and it's like not even worth it for my head and my heart to continue with this thing, not this way. And there's so many latent loves and other things that I value and that value me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I could contribute my time to. So
yeah, absolutely. Which is a lot harder when you're an adult, because you know a job pays you money.
Bro.
And it's like, damn, this isn't bringing me life at all. It's not serving me in any way other than with cash flow. But sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah,
it's hard.
It's a challenge. Yeah. Why hand poked tattoos?
Okay, so now we can follow this train of me drawing again after high school to the hand poke thing. So after high school, I traveled, I did a thing called Youth with a Mission, YWAM for short.
Okay.
And essentially,
band, George Michael.
Yeah, I wish it was a band. It was a good experience, but essentially it's all over the world. You can look into it. There's actually a lot of people. Brandon and I go to the same church, and there's a lot of people. Well, maybe not a lot of people. There's a few people at our church who have done YWAM.
Okay.
But it's a missions organization, and I went and did that right after high school, and so I spent 3 months in Hawaii doing a school. It's called the Discipleship Training School, where you just like basically go to church for 8 hours a day. It is wild. And then they send you out on your outreach, which is another like mine was like 3.5 months trip to wherever to, you know, serve and do ministry in some kind of way. And I did a lot of TV video stuff in high school. I went to a trade school part-time for TV video, right. Which, you know, I was actually thinking when I got here, I was like, I got some stuff for Brandon, some ideas. Yeah, as far as that goes. But so I was traveling around doing TV video stuff, using photography, videography to like, you know, do ministry. It was actually really cool, some of the things that we did. My team, however, was 5 females, all from different places in the world, and all different ages. And so we had this like weird mix of culture, and I had 2 Latinas on my team, and you know, I'm half Mexican, and so there was a lot of like spicy fighting. And we were also in Southeast Asia, which is primarily there's a lot of Filipino, but it's I think it's the biggest Muslim country. Like it has the biggest population. And so they're very strict about like men and women sharing quarters. And so I was alone all the time because I was the only guy on my team. And so I started drawing, you know, to get back to the tattooing. I'm always, I have ADHD, so context always takes me away from the main point. Anyway, there's the context.
Better than I am at it.
Back to the tattooing piece. I spent a lot of time drawing because I was alone. And when I was in Hawaii doing my school, I met another girl who, she had this little like pizza tattoo on her arm that just like kind of looked like shit, but I was like, it's kind of cool though. And she was like, oh yeah, this is stick and poke. And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, oh, I did this with a sewing needle and some ink from the back of a pen. And I was like, I didn't know you could do that. You know, I had one tattoo professionally done, and I was like, I didn't know I could do that. She was like, yeah, it's pretty easy. So I like had that in the back of my mind. I started drawing, and then, you know, after this trip, I came home and I had all these drawings and was like really getting into drawing again. And I had another friend who he had also been traveling with YWAM.
Hold on, I screwed something up.
Oh, that's right.
We just started doing something weird.
Is it buzzing?
Yeah. And nothing, we didn't touch nothing or move anything or nothing.
Yeah, that is so weird. I wonder. Is it a phone? Sometimes that'll happen.
Maybe it's in here. Check.
Yeah, that's so strange.
Cause it was fine. One day I'll be a big boy and I'll upgrade to some stuff that's worth it now. Here. Check. Have you tried turning it off and back on again?
Dude, sometimes that does the trick.
Alright.
Let me know.
We're back.
Let me know.
Poking.
Yeah. Okay, so hand poking. So I was traveling. Dude, technology will always work against you. I learned that when I did TV video. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. It is always working against you.
Every time.
All it is like just being prepared for anything to go wrong. That's all it is. Anyway, so hand poking. I was traveling. I spent a lot of time alone, started drawing. And then when I came back home from my travels, my best friend had also been traveling on the other side of the world. And, you know, we were like 18, 19, just super bored. And it's summertime. And I was like, hey, you want a tattoo? And he was like, you don't know how to tattoo. And I was like, yeah, but like I could figure it out. It was like I met this girl and she had this tattoo with like yeah. I was like, she used a sewing needle and some pen ink, and he was like, dude, you're not doing that. And then I like found this like video on YouTube showing how to do it, and I showed it to him. He's like, dude, no, you're not gonna do that. And then the next day I came over and he was like, okay, you can do it, but if you don't do it right now, it's never gonna happen.
Right.
And so I went to Hobby Lobby. I bought some sewing needles, some India ink for like a fountain pen, and some like sewing string. 'Cause what you do is you like stick a sewing needle in the back of a pencil, like between the metal part and the eraser. You like take the back end and stick it in there, and then you wrap a bunch of like sewing thread around it, and then you wrap that all the way to the top of the needle so that it holds. It's like an ink well, so it like holds the ink up there, and then you can dip it in the ink.
Right.
And dude, it was so unsanitary, but you know, I gave him this little hatchet on the back of his arm, and it took me so long, and he complained the whole time, and then at the end he was like, oh, that wasn't so bad, and then, you know, he gave me one, and then me and my friends for a few weeks were just like throwing around stupid tattoos, and eventually they got over it. You know, it was just like this little fad, right. And they were like, all right, we're done. And I was like, what do you mean we're done? Like, I want to do it more. And they're like, well, you can do it more, you know. And then I tattooed them a little bit more. I met somebody else who did stick and poke, hand poke tattoos. And you'll also hear me use those two words synonymously, stick and poke and hand poke.
Is there a right or wrong?
Stick and poke is just like the dive bar crappy version of hand poke. That's just like the dirty way. Okay. And then hand poke is like the professional way. So when I'm talking about it business wise, I usually say
that's why ChatGPT brought me hand poke.
Yeah,
being fancy.
Yeah, exactly. But after that, I like had random people start to reach out, and I loved it. And then eventually, you know, I met through Instagram. I found that there's like a whole world of artists that just do hand poke tattoos, and I came across one in Germany, and he found my page, and I kind of shot some messages back and forth with him, and he eventually was like, hey man, here's a list of supplies that you should buy. He was really cool. I'm pretty sure his handle on Instagram is where the fuck is Connor, and he unforgettable. But yeah, he's just in like Frankfurt, Germany, and was like, hey, I like your stuff. And he's like, you using sewing needles? And I was like, yep. And he was like, here, go buy all of this list of supplies and let me know when you do that, and I'll give you some pointers. And you know, he was just super encouraging and supportive, and I went and got all those supplies and got a little bit better. And you know, that was like 9 years ago, something like that. And I've just been adding to my tools and to my practice, and I've just grown and grown. And I love stick and poke, and I've used a machine a few times, but there's just something sacred about stick and poke. You know, it's very intimate. It actually heals a little bit quicker, hurts a little bit less, and the market is way less saturated for stick and poke or hand poked artists, because you know there's thousands of people who know how to use a machine, while in Denver there's maybe 10 hand poked artists that I could give to you, but that's it. And I'm one of them. So
talk about lightening it up. That's how you kind of focus and kind of close into your people, your community, your niche, or whatever you want to call it. And the dude taking an interest in what you were doing and helping you like thrive up what you do is kind of a big deal. You know, I had a dude last week, he built me a brand new website for my cleaning company just because he was excited.
Yeah.
You know, he sat here and like for 5 hours, it's like, hey, oh, here's a tip. You could do this, you could update that, maybe you should fix that.
Yeah.
And I sent it back, and I'm just picturing him going, how cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he emails me and he's like, send me your password, make me a connector on your thing. And he literally just went back and forth with me and like just probably gave me thousands of dollars worth of work.
That's just
this thing just by taking it.
I love that. That's really cool. And it's
and it's
just showing some showing some initiative, right. And then somebody helps you and it gives you more, you know, just more fuel to keep going. Sure. And yeah, if people see that initiative in you, they'll oftentimes reach out and want to help, you know, which is so cool. And it's about who you know, not what you know.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, it's good to know some things, but
it's good to know a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, at least be interested in trying to learn a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Oh man, I had a whole train of thought. Oh, so hand poked.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm not much better at flying off the sidelines than you are. I've got 2 experiences that when you said it, I was like, hey, I saw like this Discovery Channel Maori thing or something, and I think it was like a Hawaiian or a Maori thing, and they got like a whole thing that took days, and like she went into some kind of like shock and stuff during the process. And I was like, wow, this is intense.
Yeah.
And the other place I saw those tattoos was not very wholesome.
Yeah. Hey.
I was like, yeah, ink and a couple of things out of and a Walkman. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You get your razor and you tear it apart. Take your toothbrush, melt it down a little bit. Guitar strings, dude. I know the whole bit.
Yeah, those ones we'll talk about on another episode.
Yeah.
This too, my homeboy got a tattoo machine and didn't know how to use it at all. His girlfriend got it for him. He's like, hey, bro, can I tattoo you? I've been practicing on my legs. And he got like stars all over his legs.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. And he's like, he hit me with a stencil because his birthday's the day before or after mine. So we're both Virgos. He was like, I'll just put this on you. And he did. He only dug into me like one really good time.
Yeah, dude. It's actually like usually when people don't know how to tattoo, it's pretty blown out. But that's pretty gentle-handed. Like that's not bad. That's really good, actually. Yeah. Yeah, usually that's pretty blown out, but man, it looks great.
That's what's happening.
I'm impressed.
A little bit of Jim Beam and whatever else. And
that's so crazy. I've done worse than that, so.
But it wasn't hand poked though. It was not hand poked. So you've got coffee, you've got serving students and people, serving God. How do all these things that you do and all these different passions intersect?
Oh man. I mean the biggest one is people, right? Like there's people in every facet of thing that I do. It's
serving in some sense.
Yeah, it's working at Sweet Bloom. I love it, but it's not, it's not my heart. It's not my passion. But the thing that keeps me there is that I have regulars and I have people that I know, and like I keep up with their life, and some of them also keep up with my life and what's going on. And I also don't just see them there. Like sometimes I'll see those people at a city event or at the grocery store, and to be able to like actually know my community and to be like, oh, what's up, Angela? Or like, yeah, just like running into people. Like I met these people at a concert, and they lived in Denver, and just the other day, this is last year I met them, and just the other day they walked in and I was like, Trip, what is up? And he was like, how do I know you? And I was like, we met at that concert last summer. He was like, holy shit, no way, like what? And he was like, we just moved to Arvada. And I was like, sick, I work here, and he's come in a few times, and it's just like this beautiful place for interaction. And I love it because it is in the middle of Arvada, which is where I'm from. It is part of my community, and it is a way of service. Even if it is a business, it's a small business owned by people who I love, and I have people who come in that I actually care about. And it's just so cool. And tattooing for me is just, I mean, you had that episode with the hairstylist. I can't remember her name right now. Laura Lee.
Still, I like beauty.
Yeah, and she's talking about, therapists.
Yeah.
And
therapy, yeah.
Therapy, yeah. And that happens to tattoo artists too, It's like people share really intimate, deep stuff with you while they're sitting there because they're already being vulnerable by letting you mark them forever.
True that.
So I've had some pretty wild things shared with me in those spaces, and it is so special to be somebody who's trusted and to be able to, not like Laura Lee said, like not fix them or not, try to give them advice, but just to be with them and hear them and like recognize them and see them where they're at is so special. And to be honest, for me, that is like very much a ministry. That's more what Jesus looks like than a lot of other quote unquote Christian ministries. Like just me being able to create a safe space for somebody to share that and to feel loved and to feel seen and to feel welcomed and wanted back is just so special. And like I just get to create art and tell a story and share stories, and like tattooing, we watch movies sometimes. Like we listen to music, we're sharing music back and forth. That space is just so special. I love one-on-one conversations and just time where it's like just me and one other person. And so tattooing is super special. And then as far as people goes with my students, like high school kids, I stepped into working at our church having mostly experienced high school kids and not really working with middle school. But I've learned a lot about middle schoolers, and those guys are so authentic, and they just want to be loved and seen and cared for, and like they're still figuring out who they are, you know. And it's beautiful to be there with them and to just like show up and be consistent, because that's all a middle schooler needs, is somebody to just be there to be like, hey, I'm here for you whenever, because I like you. And high school students, I love them because they're a little bit more set in who they are, and they're questioning like, do I like you? You know, so that
interesting dynamic.
Yeah. In every training that I've been to or that I've done with youth, is middle schoolers ask the question, do you like me? And high school kids ask the question, do I like you? And both of those are answered with consistency, right? Because if you show up to a high schooler's like sports game or play or concert enough times, they're gonna realize like, oh, I do like you because you're consistent. You care.
Yeah.
Even if you're like not the coolest person ever, and it just takes consistency, and I love that. And high school kids especially, they're like just like the perfect clay where they want purpose, and so you're kind of giving them shape, and you're not like